Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So in this one, I want to talk a little bit about the issues with the splits, the fix, and the compensation. Now, I already did a video going over their announcement of, hey, yeah, there was an issue with splits, we're fixing it, this is what we're doing, and if for some reason you haven't already heard or seen, that fix is now live. The boosted rates are live in-game, it is safe to split your cards again, and I can say, at least personally, having done a few splits on some of my more favorite cards, I've had some pretty good results, which is nice. And we have also been issued some compensation for it. The compensation came in the form of a X-Men 97 Magneto variant and a Rainbow Cosmic Border, which was delivered via inbox, I think, a day or two ago. But there have been some greater questions about this compensation, so I kind of wanted to give a little rundown of like where things are at with this, because I think there's like a lot of confusion about it, and I think most of all there's a lack of like understanding different perspectives, and so my hope is this video provides a little more insight into a variety of different perspectives on the issue, including my own. So, quick little TLDR if you weren't aware of what happened. The split rates were unintentionally nerfed about 2 months ago, and they were, I think, 7-8% worse than they used to be. They used to be in the, 23-24%, if I'm remembering correctly, and they got nerfed down by roughly 7.8%. So it was significantly less odds of getting gold or inked as well as crackle. And in the end game of Marvel Snap, that is really what people are chasing. I mean, I think the developers have even said it themselves. Snap is designed to where, you know, the people who spend a lot of money on the game, the thing they're chasing at the end of it is they're not really chasing all the cards anymore, because players at that level often have more resources than they know what to do with. They're chasing getting, you know, cool customizations of their favorite cards and characters, which, honestly, pretty reasonable way to balance an endgame spending thing, if you ask me. Where this issue gets a little bit more complicated, though, is for the people who spent a lot of money chasing splits during this nerfed time period. Because though we are getting increased rates, right? Like the rates are up now and they're going to remain up through the December patch. So effectively the same amount of time the splits were lower rates, now they're going to be higher rates to balance it out. But what if you are one of these big whales, and you don't even really have to be a big whale to be impacted by this? I mean, I know some people who are free to play who are upset about this purely because of the boosters. But if you spent a lot of money, or you spent a lot of your free resources and boosters on trying to split your favorite card, in order to even out those odds, you effectively have to put in the same amount that you put in during that 2-month period in order to get those evened out odds. And that's not even greater odds, by the way. That's just getting the equivalent odds, because it was lower before, it's higher now, it evens out to where it should have been. So if you're someone who did spend a lot of money chasing splits, you got them at that reduced rate, in order to even out your odds, you would effectively have to dump all that same amount of money in again. And that's where I think a lot of people are unhappy with this compensation. Now, if you're a free-to-play player who doesn't really care too much about this stuff, the compensation probably seems really good to you. You got a free variant, you got a free border for something you really don't care all that much about. Though there definitely are some free-to-play and pass-only players who are unhappy with this too, because of the boosters. So getting boosters in this game is kind of a pain in the ass if you run out of them, because you can't really hard target boosters outside of the bonus booster shop. And while that is a really good feature and something I know I and many other people take advantage of just by clearing out your kind of queue of what shows up there so you can guarantee the cards you want, I don't think the vast majority of people are actually making use of that feature to its full extent. Just because like the game never tells you how to do it, and I think most people just aren't aware of how to make that work. So for example, let's say I ended up spending all my arrow boosters over the last 2 months going for a cool arrow split and I didn't get one. Well, now that they have these boosted rates, I can go for it again, but if I'm out of arrow boosters and I don't have this shop set up in the way to get the free ones every 8 hours, I'm kind of SOL unless I happen to get lucky getting them. And anyone who tried to do booster farming back in the day before we had the free better upgrade thing in the shop, it's really bad because there's no guarantees on the boosters you're going to get. You can play for hours and hours and hours and barely get any boosters, or get no boosters at all for the card you're going for. So I think that's definitely one element that should be considered. The issue really is that Second Dinner has put themselves in a bit of a bind here, because the end game for these players who are the biggest whales and the people who spend the most amount of money on the game, and who, are making the vast majority of the profits for the game, they do not really care about progression because they've spent so much money that progression is an afterthought to them. And I'm sure if you ask many of these people, and I have asked some of these people myself, if they care about getting the credits in order to gain more progression, or if they just want to be able to re-roll these wasted splits, I think they would all tell you they just want the splits. The splits are the thing that they feel kind of robbed from, and feel like it feels bad that they're expected to put in however many dollars they put in before just to equal out their odds. And I think that's really not an unreasonable feeling to have. If I was in that position, I think I'd feel pretty similar. I spend money on the game, but I am by no means a split whale. I've cut back my spending on Snap pretty hard for a variety of reasons. So I don't feel super slighted by this on a personal level. I'm pretty indifferent. But I do kind of feel for people who are feeling kind of robbed by this, because you paid money for a service that you were expecting to be the same. 2 months later, we get an acknowledgement that, oh, hey, yeah, you actually were paying the same amount of money for getting less of what you want, but it's okay because now you can just pay the same amount of money again and get more of what you want to equal out to what it was before. And I think that's going to rub people really the wrong way if they are someone who does spend a bunch of money trying to chase these splits. And those are the people you do not want to piss off. It's pretty common knowledge in mobile gaming. The vast majority of money from mobile gaming comes from a very, very small percentage of the player base. And you'll see it a lot where gaming companies generally try not to upset those players because that's where the money is coming from. I mean, I think the developers have even said it themselves long ago in the past that Snap cannot reasonably sustain itself off of just people buying the season pass. It's all the extra stuff, the bundles, the variants, the split chasing, all that stuff. That is what is making the big money for this game. It's not just people spending $10 every month. And Second Dinner put themselves in kind of a bind here because they don't seem to have the tools to really lower the collection track or take things away. We've seen that happen a number of times before. And what's especially interesting to me is there was actually a somewhat related, little bit different issue not too long ago, a month or two ago as well, where some players were getting duplicate splits on the same character, which wasn't supposed to be a thing anymore, and they were able to acknowledge the issue. They gave people credits and boosters as compensation per duplicate split. Now, that affected a much smaller portion of the player base, so that was probably why it was easier for them to compensate in such a way. Whereas this issue, it scales really weirdly, because the people who feel most screwed are the ones who spent the most money. And so if you do accurately compensate these players, they're worried about losing a ton of potential value because they're giving players all this free progress, which is yeah, that's a fair thing to worry about if you're focused on making money as a company. So it really is a shame they can't seem to find, or at least they haven't so far found, some kind of middle ground where they can let people essentially resplit these cards without giving them all these free resources to get more free stuff. And I think that really comes down to the limitations of their game systems and whatnot more than anything else. But it's a shame nonetheless, because I think it leaves a really big feels bad, and it does risk turning away a lot of these people who are the biggest spenders in the game. And so it feels like they are stuck in a position of, well, we could either not compensate with any resources and risk people just turning away from the game or spending less or what have you, leaving entirely, or we could give back the resources and we potentially lose out on a lot of potential value. And when they know for a fact that they are going to lose out on potential value by giving resources back out, versus they don't know for a fact that people are going to leave by not being compensated, because I'm sure there are many, many people who spend a lot of money who either don't care or do care but don't care enough to stop the game because they're too far down the rabbit hole. They're too invested in the game to quit over something like that. So right now it feels like they're just taking the gamble of, well, one thing is for sure going to cost us, the other, it might cost us, but we don't know that until we see what happens. So I think they're going to play on the gamble here. They're going to take the risk that maybe it will not affect us negatively enough to where it matters. So overall, it's a complex issue. I think a lot of people are more than happy with the compensation, and frankly, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to kind of give insight into the multiple perspectives here, where a large group doesn't really care about it because they don't feel they were that negatively impacted, and they're getting, those bonus rates now, they're getting some cool splits, so the negative feelings kind of evened out, or in some cases might even feel more positive. And I think for me, like, I'm generally closer to that group in terms of personal experience, because I didn't spend a lot of money chasing splits. I didn't burn all my boosters for a character, and now I'm out and I can't split them with the new split rates. But there are people in those positions and it really sucks for them. So I would hope that there can be some better middle ground here. I do think it is going to be limited by the technology they have access to within the game. So I don't know how it's going to turn out or if anything else will happen. But I thought it was worth talking about the issue because I think it is a pretty hot topic within the community right now. So I just wanted to provide an insight into perspective from kind of both sides here, where it's like, this is why it feels negative to people who spent a whole lot of money on the game, and also why this is why it feels not that bad to people who didn't. So yeah, ultimately, I think there is some more work to be done in terms of finding a more fair ground for compensation. I think at the very least, boosters are something they really shouldn't be stingy about giving out, because even people who didn't spend a lot of money do feel pretty negatively impacted if they can't split the cards that they split during the nerfed period in the buffed period because they don't have the boosters. If nothing else, I think that should be an easy solution that doesn't have anything to do with the more larger economic concerns of the economy. And we know Second Dinner is always real scared about that economy. That's why, we have been waiting for a year and a half for more changes to card acquisition that have never seemed to manifest. They're always so worried. Won't somebody please think of the poor, struggling Marvel Snap economy? Because they're very afraid to do any single thing that might tip it off balance. And turns out giving players a bunch of credits as compensation, in their eyes, probably would tip it off balance quite a bit. So yeah, I hope they eventually do something that makes people feel a little bit better about the situation, but only time will tell if that's going to happen. That's going to wrap it up for this video, though. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you happy with the compensation? Do you feel it is not good enough? What are some solutions you'd like to see? I'd love to hear it, but that's going to wrap it up for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.